Welcome to the TechMobility Podcast.
I'm Ken Chester. I've been highlighting lately money's being spent by state and local governments relative to alternative forms of transportation, and I do not mean, in this case, anything to do with EVs. Not EVs, not wind, not solar, nothing. What I'm talking about is a growing amount of expenditures for something that you might consider mundane and unimportant, but for those people who are limited in their transportation choices, it's extremely important. And I'm talking about sidewalks. Sidewalks. America is considered one of the most car-centric countries in the world. We drive every place. We drive across the street if we needed to, as opposed to walk. So it does my heart good as I see an increasing number of states and municipalities allocating or otherwise spending money on sidewalks. This one I want to share with you because it is so unique. And I believe I got this out of Roads and Bridges magazine, actually. And it's in one of the last places in the United States you would expect them to spend this kind of money for this purpose. And I'm talking about West Virginia. Full disclosure, my wife's from West Virginia. But West Virginia is mountainous. It doesn't have a lot of opportunities for walking. But this is the headline. West Virginia governor announces grant awards for alternative transportation. The immediate line underneath that is the funding will develop sidewalks and walking paths. I want to take this a little further. Very often when you hear about allocation for sidewalk or allocation for walking, it's usually about walking paths or biking paths or something like that. It's not for sidewalks. The reason why I am so excited about sidewalks is because if you do not have access to a vehicle, the sidewalk is a safe way to get from point A to point B without being in the road and getting risked of run over or worse. Sidewalks actually give pedestrians a safe place to travel because if you're mobile, if you have a certain amount of health, then you can walk. If you can walk, you can get there. But very often in our country, sidewalk networks are chaotic, sporadic, inconsistent. How many of you have actually walked the sidewalk only for it to end? Just suddenly end. It just suddenly ended. And you couldn't cross the street or anything. There was just no more sidewalk, forcing you into the road. That's unsafe, and it's dangerous. And there's a whole history. You pick your municipality, and they will show you roads where highways and pedestrians do not mix. And when they do, it does not end well. In the case of West Virginia, the governor announced 36 grant awards totaling $13.9 million. And the funding will help and enhance sidewalks, lighting, walking paths, rail trails, and more for projects across the mountain state. And while I can talk about the recreational trails program, and it's certainly good, I want to key in on a couple of local projects where sidewalks were added. Fayetteville, West Virginia, they're building a pedestrian bridge over a county road. Anything that reduces pedestrians being at risk for high-speed traffic. Because we've also reported here on this program how the level and number of pedestrian deaths have increased. Part of that due in part because of the heavier vehicles we now drive. We drive a lot more pickup trucks than cars, vans, sport utility vehicles. Even electric vehicles are heavier. And when they interact with a pedestrian, because these heavy vehicles are that and higher, if it's a truck or an SUV, the pedestrian usually always loses fatally. So this is good. In Oak Hill, they've got a street project that will spend $897,000, and they're literal. There goes to the construction of approximately 2,738 linear feet of sidewalk. along Route 61 in the city of Oak Hill, West Virginia. And then finally, in Lewisburg, West Virginia, $75,000 will go to the design of sidewalk improvements at a specific corner, which I have to assume was a high-risk corner for pedestrians. All of these are projects dedicated to sidewalks, not building a new road, not building a highway, not building an interstate, but sidewalks, giving people another option to get from point A to point B, which number one is healthier, number two is safer, and number three, we used to walk everywhere. We used to. And I think in this world where we're going to see this kind of opportunity where there is a return back to making sidewalks a priority, particularly in urban centers or even close by suburbs, it's a benefit. And I'm glad to see it because in the eastern part of the country, taxpayers usually pay for that. Out here in the Midwest, they expect the landowner to pay for it, which is why there aren't that many sidewalks. Because the landowner, if they don't require to do it, they won't. And it's a very different philosophy that where I grew up back east, typically cities and towns paid for the sidewalks. That's how they got built. And you have a network of sidewalks, which makes it safer really for everybody. Second story I want to talk about before we go to the break, the Ford Bronco Sport. I got to start with an admission. Everybody knows that the new Bronco, the larger, is awesome. And I've reported about that. It's a can-do vehicle. It can do just about anything. I recently came around to have the same level of respect for the Bronco Sport. Now, the reason why I didn't originally, because the Bronco Sport is based on the Ford Escape. And I'm like, okay, Escape's a nice little SUV crossover, but it really didn't have any bona fides for off-road or any kind of serious performance. Then Ford developed the Bronco Sport. And I laughed at first. I thought, that's cute. A nice little wannabe after the Bronco. Why would you dare put the Bronco name on this thing? Then they gave me one to drive. And I put it through its paces. And I walked away with a whole bunch of respect. They are taking, for 2025, Ford designers said they wanted to close the capability gap between the Bronco Sport and larger Bronco for customers who often hunt or camp. Okay, I mean, in fairness, larger Bronco's a good size. And for a lot of people, the Bronco Sport might be a better size. And I considered it very respectable already. But the Ford Motor Company is beefing up Bronco Sport with more off-road muscle for 2025, adding steel bumpers, a new grille design, and a Sasquatch package that includes larger tires and suspension upgrades. And since its introduction in 2020, the Bronco Sport's carved a niche in the crowded compact crossover segment, with U.S. sales rising 28% last year. And they expect it to take on a more important role in Ford's lineup as the company prepares to discontinue the similarly sized Escape while further leaning in the Bronco Sport's rugged reputation. And it seems like that's what automakers are doing right now. They're getting rid of the kind of vanilla crossover SUVs, and they're going more rugged. Chevy's doing that at the lower end of the spectrum. They just did that with Equinox. They've done it with Trailblazer. They're doing it with Trax. Ford is stepping up Bronco Sport. And like I said earlier, Bronco Sport is pretty respectable already. The freshened model, which is coming actually this month, comes with a larger center screen and a larger digital cluster inspired by the Bronco Raptor. And they're borrowing some other features from the bigger Bronco that are performance features. So I'm stoked because I'd love to drive this thing with Sasquatch package just to see how it does. Because the last one I had was very impressive because I did take it off-road and I did get a little dirty just to see what it could do. And I was pleasantly surprised. And I think you will be too. So it's impressive. It really, really is. The only thing I wish it had was a manual transmission. Oh, well. NASCAR welcomes an EV prototype to the track. You are listening to the Tech Mobility Show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the main place to be these days, and we are no exception. I'm Ken Chester, the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Facebook videos. From my latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary of a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Facebook. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. Be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page. Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast to iHeartRadio and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is an invitation, mister. Not to you, but to the inner you. The gypsy, the wanderer, the perhaps forgotten you. But be forewarned, this is freedom. Impala Super Sport by Chevrolet. Shortcut to everywhere. Here, car and earth kiss softly. A steel coil spring at each wheel. Oh, this is the jet smooth ride of Chevrolet. The peaceful security of body by Fisher. This, the Impala Super Sport Lounge. Soft, vinyl-covered bucket seats in front. Deep twist carpeting afoot. Isn't it about time you took charge? Get with the Impala Super Sport, a great highway performer at your Chevrolet dealers.
That was 1964, and if you saw the video, it was appealing to a man, a two-door. It alluded performance, but really didn't say anything about performance. It kind of suggested it's a real highway performer, but it didn't talk about the V8 or whether it was an automatic or manual. Didn't talk about any of that stuff. What did it talk about? The interior. It talked about comfortable seats and comfortable carpet. Didn't talk about the standard AM radio because it was a little bit before FM. Didn't talk about if there was air conditioning or not. It was notably quiet about that. But oh yeah, for the inner you that needed a Impala Super Sport 1964. I don't know. It's just interesting to share the mindset of advertising agencies, automobile manufacturers, or who they thought their target audience was back in the day. Very interesting. I guess that women didn't buy cars back then, apparently, and didn't like performance, which I find hard to believe, but okay, GM, whatever. In a recent Saturday morning, during the recent NASCAR championship weekend at the Phoenix Motor Speedway in Phoenix, Arizona, a number 35 car swerved around the 4 turns and 2 straightaways of the mile oval at speeds of up to 155 miles an hour. While the vehicle looked like any one of the NASCAR-sanctioned competitors that would vie for domination on the track later that weekend on the outside, it was completely a different beast under the hood. This is Topic A. NASCAR. And in case you didn't know what that stood for, it's formally known as the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing. And it's an American auto racing sanctioning and operating company that's best known for stock car racing. course, you already knew that. It is considered to be one of the top-ranked motorsports organizations in the world and one of the largest spectator sport leagues in America. And guess what? It's privately owned. And it was founded by Bill France Sr. in 1948 and his son, Jim France, who's been the CEO since August 2018. The company is headquartered in Daytona Beach, Florida. And each year, NASCAR sanctions over 1,500 races in over 100 tracks in 48 U.S. states, as well as Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and Europe. And I bet you didn't know that. So what am I talking about? NASCAR is going electric. And now, before you panic, hold on, before you panic, let me read you this, because I just heard you say, no way, no how, not ever. I'm going to read this, and I'm talking about an article actually in Energy Tech of all places. And I'm going to quote this sentence so you can take a breath, calm down. No, the racing series is not going electric car-wise anytime soon. But NASCAR owns about 15 speedways outright and many Class 8 transport trucks. And they're actually working with an electrical engineering firm called ABB. They're global. And they're based in Sweden. And this new partnership that they've got, they want to bring evolution of the high-performance U.S. electric vehicle technology. Basically, NASCAR is the place where manufacturers raced back in the day. The old saying, if you're a certain age, you may remember, race on Sunday, sell on Monday. That was NASCAR. That came out of NASCAR. Every major automaker had a team. Every major automaker was out there. And back in the days when they say stock car, they meant stock car. They were lightly to heavily modified cars that were off the line, unlike today where at best it's just a hint. They are very highly sophisticated vehicles that bear little resemblance to what you might buy in a showroom today. But still, there's still some companies that still race. So what they're looking at this time is through its new partnership is an example. Let me give you an example. That car, that number 35 car that went around the track, was driven by Dave Reagan, and it was in a 3 electric motor, 1,300 horsepower EV prototype. Did 30 laps around the Phoenix Speedway at that speed, 155. And it was all alone Saturday in between qualifying laps, racing into the fray to learn more and to create new interest within the most internal combustion engine loving audience in all America. And here's their logic. If you can win at NASCAR, if you can win the hearts and minds of those folks at NASCAR that participate, go to NASCAR races, then you can sell it anywhere. The biggest thing is getting all the test sessions in are really the first of firsts. And this EV, this number 35 that was developed, was actually engineered with Ford, GM, and Toyota with the help of ABB. And while, no, it's not going to suddenly change all of a sudden that you're going to see electric cars competing in a NASCAR event. You're years away from that. But what they want to do is they want to present the concept of an EV to these folks who are die-hard, they got gas in their veins and oil in their blood. These folk. They want to introduce them. In fact, they had displays there of the new Chevy Equinox EV that folks could go. They talked about the jobs that the new EV industry would bring, basically introducing the public, the NASCAR-loving, gasoline-fueled public, to EVs where they're at, rather than expecting them to walk through a showroom where they probably never will. What's happening is NASCAR is electrifying their processes and procedures because NASCAR goes from event to event. They've got logistics going on. So they figure if they can take their operating systems, their vehicles, everything that makes NASCAR to make it happen and convert those, they can get some benefit. Because they'll tell you in a minute, they want to explore cleaner energy outcomes such as LED lighting, energy efficiency, electrification of transport and equipment, and even microgrids in the future. They tell you that NASCAR is actually also a logistical business. We're focusing on decarbonization, starting with our facilities, and they're in the third year. In the first year working with ABB, they cut emissions 15% in some operations, year one. And they expect it to get better. They expect it to get more aggressive. And they want to introduce the public to what they're doing and start to educate the public about the possibilities of EVs, even while pushing the boundaries of EV performance through NASCAR tracks. So it's a win-win all the way around. So no, NASCAR's not going EV tomorrow. They want to introduce you to it. Next, we take a look how ransomware groups operate. This is the Tech Mobility Show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you've missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts to iHeartRadio and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be, we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. The Oxford Dictionary defines ransomware as a type of malicious software designed to block access to a computer system until a sum of money is paid. While some simple ransomware may lock the system without damaging any files, more advanced malware uses a technique called cryptoviral extortion. It encrypts the victim's files, making them inaccessible, and then demands a ransom payment to decrypt them. In a properly implemented cryptoviral extortion attack, recovering the files without the decryption key is an intractable problem, and difficult to trace digital currencies such as PaySafeCard or Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are used for ransoms, making tracing and prosecuting the perpetrators difficult. Ransomware remains an ever-present operational, financial, and reputational risk to business and organizations. This is Topic B. It is not enough these days that ransomware locks up your computer. They actually, in what they call double extortion, download your information, encrypt it, and then block you. Meaning that even no matter what you do, you're still stuck. You can't decrypt it even if you choose not to pay them. And they get to double dip you twice. That's not okay. Typically, ransomware attacks are carried out using a Trojan horse disguised as a legitimate file that the user is tricked into downloading or operating when it arrives as an email attachment. That's the way it's been always done. However, one high-profile example called the WannaCry worm traveled automatically between computers, get this now, without user interaction. If that's not enough, the criminals are getting smart. And today, the folks that develop this stuff usually are not the ones that actually enact it. Welcome to ransomware as a service. They've actually outsourced the attacks. You got the developers that develop this stuff, and they make it available in some outfits they called affiliates. The affiliates carry out the attacks and split the money they get with the developers. Ransomware as a service. And if you don't think they're using AI, you got another thought coming. They are getting as sophisticated as the companies developing this new stuff. Let me give you some numbers. This one company, securityinfowatch.com, reported, get this, 913 ransomware breach events, wait for it, in the second quarter of this year. I did not stutter. 913. That sounds like a lot, and it is. It's actually a 16% drop over the same period last year. And the drop in those breach events is likely due in part to something called Operation Kronos, a law enforcement action led by the UK National Crime Agency, which targeted one of the major ransomware groups called Lockbit. Ransomware as a service operators such as Lockbit rely on networks of other malicious hackers, known as affiliates, to carry out attacks. These operators provide the malware and infrastructure to the affiliates, and like I said earlier, the two sides share the ransom paid. Law enforcement activity tends to disrupt these relationships, and affiliates often change groups following a bust. So, while law enforcement's disruption of Lockbit caused disturbances in its affiliate network, they went elsewhere. And this is the chilling part. At one time, it numbered more than 190 affiliates. That's 190 groups, using Lockbit software to cause mischief and mayhem for money across the planet. And they're just one. They happen to be, until they got shut down, the most prolific and largest ransomware as a service group in the last 2 years. Operation Kronos secretly infiltrated the group's infrastructure and recovered the decryption keys. This is just one of them. Even though they kind of messed them up, they still continued as a ransomware entity with 122 attacks attributed to the group in the second quarter of the year, the highest number of all groups. They keep going and going. Let me talk about another group, another ransomware group, because this particular organization, securityinfowatch.com, keyed in on 3 top ransomware as a service groups. What scares me, though, is they know all the software that they use in order to carry these attacks out. That chills me somewhat. This group's called Play. They started in June of 2022. And they stand out as a different group because they don't run an affiliate program. They claim that their ransom payments are tailored to each victim, aligned with their accessibility to pay. Play's data leak site, where it posts stolen data, warns that if a victim doesn't get in contact within 3 days, their name will be listed on the portal. The group will also warns that it will contact the victim's customers and partners, sending them a link to stolen data. And they definitely want to use the double extortion tactic, which means they exfiltrate the data before encrypting it, which means they got your goods. They got your data. They didn't just block you from it. They got it. And whatever they decide to do with it, they can extort for even more. From a target perspective, Play doesn't prefer industries or locations when choosing victims. They've exploited remote services, including firewall products, virtual private networks, and remote desktop protocol connections to gain initial access. Other Play tactics, techniques, and procedures include, and they talk about, System BC malware for persistent access, the Cobalt Strike threat emulation software, and the PowerShell scripting language for post-compromise lateral movement. This scares me. They know exactly what Play is using. It also uses Mimikatz to extract credentials from memory, AD-Find and Bloodhound tools for network enumeration and discovery. Stop right there. These folks are researching. This is one ransomware group, and they know this much about them to know what they're using. So the big question is, why can't you stop them? Why are they even still in business? The most recent major group, ransomware group, is called Ransom Hub. They came out this year, February, and has been one of the most active groups ever since. Our organization, well, the organization that we're talking about, that's the securityinfowatch.com, recorded 54 attacks by Ransom Hub across April, May, and June alone. Again, they are a ransomware as a service outfit. And they claimed victims across a multitude of industries. They demonstrated a clear preference for entities in Europe and the United States. But here's the difference. Most of their victims were low-profile entities with low or undisclosed revenues. Why? They don't have the money and they don't have the talent to put up robust defenses, meaning they're low-hanging fruit. And this suggests that the group prioritizes or prefers targets that are easier to attack, but would likely pay some ransom. They've also claimed to compromise 7 organizations with more than $1 billion in revenues. So they can do it. They're hitting harder, fewer targets for more money. It's liable to continue happening. These are the top 3. When it comes to EV batteries, there is a lot of myths out there. I will debunk several next. We are the TechMobility Show. To learn more about the TechMobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the TechMobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Did you know that TechMobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the TechMobility Show on YouTube. Check it out.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the TechMobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the TechMobility Show in the search bar. When it comes to EV batteries, there's plenty of confusion in the marketplace. From simple misinformation to that which is just plain 100% wrong. And no matter how you feel about EVs, whether you're for them, against them, hate them, love them, wherever you fall in the spectrum, and EV batteries in particular, I want you to have the facts so that you can make up your own mind. I want you to deal that if you don't like them, you're dealing with facts. If you like them, you're dealing with facts. And if you don't care, you're dealing with facts. I'm going to debunk several of these myths during the segment. This is topic C. There's a lot of myths and dated information about EV batteries out there. And before I even get into some of the myths, let me just give you the landscape of where we're at right now. If you've been listening to me over the last few years, I told you that battery chemistries will change. The cost of battery storage would fall. The cost of EV batteries would fall. And once the domestic automakers got in and started scaling this stuff up, that they would find cheaper materials to use and drive the cost down. All of that is happening in real time right now. And if you remember, I even told you about some Toyota initiatives where Toyota expects to have a 600-mile range battery in the next 2 years. And by the end of this decade, they're looking at a battery that will go between 900 to 1,000 miles between charges in this decade. And Toyota, unlike some other automakers, and I'm talking about Tesla, don't usually make wild and unsubstantiated claims. If Toyota says that they're going to do it, put your foot on it. That's happening. With that backdrop, let me talk about some of the myths. Let me start with myth number 1. EV batteries are highly complex. They were when they were developed. But EV batteries become less complex over time, and many of these components that were new to the automotive industry are now commonplace with proven reliability. Not to mention, remember I told you that the automakers are looking to change out stuff like cobalt and lithium, and they're putting in general stuff like iron and manganese, and they're looking at, we even talked about using, honest to God, coal in an EV battery. Coal. Yeah, this stuff is happening. And while batteries still represent a high level of engineering complexity, continuous technological progress is making them easier to design, use, and understand. Also, like I told you, innovations in battery chemistry, manufacturing processes, and even fundamental changes in battery architecture are helping to move complexity. Number 2, and I'm going to have to walk you through the weeds a little bit. Battery modules are a fundamental part of EV design. In the early days, the answer would be yes. Today, automakers are developing platforms that, although would support EV batteries, they're not exclusive to EV batteries. And they're taking a look at these with the advent of their next generation architectures, particularly since the industry's done a hard turn and consumers want hybrids. Nowadays, you're most likely to see an automaker that has multiple powertrains in a vehicle architecture, which would include, but is not limited to, an EV battery. And the one that comes to mind immediately for me is the Genesis GV70. It is both gasoline and hybrid and EV, but yet looks the same. They've got an architecture, because Hyundai Group has spent billions with a B across Genesis, Hyundai, and Kia to develop that kind of flexibility, that they can build anything on anything, whether it's a hybrid, a pure EV, or a traditional internal combustion engine. So this is not true anymore. Plus, with new cell-to-pack and cell-to-chassis designs, they're integrated into the vehicle structure itself, leading to a boost in energy density, available space, and a notable reduction in weight and material consumption. So with this flexibility, gives them design flexibility, meaning, again, platforms that are not particularly EV dedicated and could be power agnostic between hybrids, EVs, and gasoline. Here's one, number 3. EV batteries are inherently unsafe. I won't give you the statistics of how many gasoline-powered vehicles catch fire every year, but yes, they are not inherently unsafe. In fact, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has actually, on purpose, crashed EVs in an attempt to compromise the EV batteries. Here's what they found. They didn't fail. You've got others like the UL testing laboratories that we talked about that actually drill holes into them, trying to get them to malfunction. The EV battery chemistries, EV battery construction, and the EV, what they call battery management systems, particularly those systems. Everything's getting better, and as a result, these systems are designed to meticulously monitor the battery's charge, temperature, and overall health, state of health, SOH, and intervening to prevent conditions that could lead to safety issues, i.e. thermal runaway, which is what you typically see. That's very rare. It makes for great news. It makes for wonderful clickbait, but rare. And yes, they are crash testing these vehicles right now. They're not catching fire, folks. It's not happening, just so you know. The safety of EV batteries have been further improved through lessons learned from vehicle impacts and battery failures. In other words, they've learned from stuff gone wrong, leading to advances such as smart fuses and fault-isolating internal structures, as well as durable casing materials. In other words, nipping the problem in the bud before it becomes a problem. Number 4, EV batteries have short lifespans. I got 3 words for you: reuse, repurpose, recycle. On average, they are now good for at least 10 years. And a lot of EV owners, and a couple I know, have gotten way more than that. And again, by the end of the decade, and I'm using Toyota as an example because we did a story about it, they're talking about million miles, 10 to 15 year life. Unlike your internal combustion engine, when it gets to end of life, you scrap it. It's over. You can't repurpose it unless you grind it up. In the case of an EV battery, when it's no longer suitable for a car, it still has 80% of its usable life, meaning that you can repurpose it. Maybe not for a car, but you can repurpose it for stationary issues. You can repurpose it for grid energy storage. Still good. That kind of leads me into number 5. EV batteries are hard to recycle. That's not true. They're actually very easy to recycle, and folks are finding more and more ways to actually do just that. More and more. If anything, EV batteries may have 2 or 3 additional lives after it comes out of the car, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. So you know. We've come to the end of the visit. Be sure to join me again next time right here. This has been the TechMobility Show.
The TechMobility Show is a copywritten production of TechMobility Productions, Incorporated. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of TechMobility Productions, Incorporated.
For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be, and we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.